All right. I think we are all set, guys. So, hello, everyone. Welcome back to This Week in Fantasy. I'm Sania Blue, filling in for the wonderful Alia Hassan this week. And we have Clayton Holford, we have Isaac Durham, Abe Seldowitz, and Terrian Rogers. So, guys, before we even get forward, I got to put you onto some amazing coffee because this was brought to you by Grand Lighthouse Coffee. So make sure you guys use that promo code EastWest to get 10% off your order. And you already know we're back with all the best fantasy football advice that is out there to give with these wonderful guys that I have with me. So let's get into week 7. It's in the books. And I just have one question for you. Who picked up Antonio Brown? You already know. But
Clayton did.
Look, Clayton did. Yep.
All right.
I'm that guy.
You're that guy?
My team is a no nutcase free zone, so yeah.
Hey,
Man, if he helps you win.
Guys call me Tom Brady.
That
I
is
guess call me
true.
Tom
That
Brady.
is
Do
true.
whatever it got to take to win.
No, that is super true. No, it's super funny. No, so the Raiders played the Bucks this Sunday, and so like the Bruce Arian questions that they were asking him were hilarious. I was in the media room, and I'm so glad you're allowed to wear masks. I was laughing so hard underneath the mask. The Antonio Brown questions were so inappropriate. I was dying laughing, bro. Like it was crazy.
Man. What about
I was
anybody
dying laughing.
worried about adding him to the team, or what too worried about maybe causing some controversy going forward?
To me, I think with Antonio Brown, you're most worried about the volume if he goes to Tampa Bay. And if he has a prominent role in the offense, it probably won't be with a lot of volume. It'll probably be more efficiency. He'll probably get the bigger plays. But there's just so many weapons that there's not enough footballs to go around. So I'd be worried about the volume. I think he's probably a flex if at all, if you even put him in your lineup, because there's a lot of other guys on the offense with Godwin, Evans, the running backs, and Fournette coming back. So and Gronk.
Yeah, I gotta ask, right? Antonio Brown or Dez Bryant?
Oh man. Whenever Dez gets the call, Dez is probably going to see more volume, right? I mean, there's not really another alpha in that offense to oppose him.
Yeah, I'm just worried. He hasn't played in 3 years, so I would be a little more concerned about that. And I would probably lean towards Antonio Brown just because he's played more recently, and I think he's probably closer to being in shape. Even though Dez has if he was on the active roster, he'd have a much better shot just because there's not that many teams in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, in my opinion, though, I think the Ravens been flirting back and forth knowing they were going to sign Dez. Like he was supposed to sign there a couple years ago, but he, didn't for whatever reason because he wanted more money. And then they asked for him to come in there this offseason, and he was in there for a little bit. So they've been flirting with the possibility of signing him, and I mean, Antonio Brown has played with Tom Brady before a game, so, but I think in the situation that we're looking at, I'm kind of leaning a little bit more toward Dez, just for the simple fact that, like Clayton said, he's going to be the alpha there. So I'm kind of leaning toward Dez.
He's going to be the alpha if he can stay healthy, though.
Yeah, if he can stay healthy, that's the thing. That's the big thing too. Yeah. So
what he signed with the Saints last year, in his first practice he gets hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt. Yeah.
I think Dez is the more intriguing guy for sure, just because of the volume, like we're all talking about here. Antonio Brown, I think, is the better player, but I mean, if Dez can stay healthy and he makes a name for himself again, like he's going to be the guy in that offense. Because Lamar, he only has Mark Andrews, a very inconsistent Marquise Brown, and that's about it.
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of questions about health. We already know that from previous weeks, and players who you think are going to be stars on the field this season end up being hurt. So that's still a big question. But all right, let's go ahead and get into this first segment. So who was your top performing fantasy player or fantasy players of the week? Isaac, I'll start with you.
Well, no question, my best player. The best performer of the week for me was Devontae Adams, and I haven't been able to say that since week 1. He's been, a little inconsistent. He's battled some injuries, but it was the second 40-plus PPR fantasy point performance of the year, and he produced 44.6 PPR points, caught 13 of his 16 targets. That's a lot of targets, and he went for a career high 196 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. So he just needs to stay healthy. And as long as he's healthy, no more hamstring injuries, I think we can expect about 20, 25 points a game, maybe not 40 every week like he just did. But before the show, I was looking at his career stats, and I just could not believe that he's only had one season with over 1,000 yards receiving. I was just baffled by that. But yeah, Davante Adams, player of the week for me.
Clayton, what are you thinking?
Well, like Isaac said, yeah, that is actually a crazy stat to think about. But Davante Adams has never played a full season healthy to put up those numbers. But whenever he's healthy, man, Davante Adams is a true top 3 guy in the game. This week for me, it was Tyler Lockett, who posted the 13th best PPR scoring fantasy game of all time. He dropped 53 points, had 200 catches. 200 catches would be nuts for one game. 200 yards in the game with 3 touchdowns. Had an absolute monster game. This is a guy we've been talking about DK Metcalf all season. DK Metcalf has made the more flashy plays. Obviously, he's a freak. We saw the chase down. But DK Metcalf is not converting a lot of his targets into catches because he's been targeted more deep. Tyler Lockett is catching things above 60% completion rate. Him and Russ have a connection. Russ is cooking this season. Against the Cardinals, he burnt the house down whenever they let him cook. But Tyler Lockett, he's still letting Russ cook, and he was my top performer this week.
Yeah, I think I might have to even second you on Tyler Lockett because he put in a phenomenal performance. And while, like you said, everybody kind of puts those eyes on DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett was like, I'm here to lock it down. That's what I'm doing this week and for his stats. But, Abe, who was your player?
Yeah, my breakout performer for this week, Deontay Johnson, wide receiver for the Steelers. He was able to have 29 points against the Titans. Before he was averaging just 9 points a game before that, so a bit of a disappointing season. We knew going into the season there'd be a lot of opportunity with Big Ben coming back and the offense and the Steelers just kind of getting rejuvenated. He had 0.8, 0.9 points his last 2 outings before this past week, so obviously very disappointing, and a lot of owners were dropping him and not even thinking about putting him in the lineup. So we know going forward, the Steelers offense, there's a lot of targets to be gone around. After Juju Smith-Schuster, there's not really much talent there, so it's pretty wide open. And I think we'll be able to continue doing well with his opportunities. It's just a matter of consistency. So he's my breakout performer for this week for sure.
All right, last one, Terrion. What are you thinking?
Yes. So there's a lot of different holidays. I don't know if you guys knew about these little, special days like National Chicken Wing Day and National Ice Cream Day and things of that nature. I even learned on Saturday was National Throw a Short Person in the Trash Day, which is kind of funny. But I say all this. Yeah, it's hilarious, right? But I say all that to say this Sunday, October 25th, was National Tight End Day, right? So, and I was honored to see up close and personal Rob Gronkowski, who is this generation's probably greatest tight end that we've seen this generation. And he kind of turned back the clock on my Raiders this Sunday. He has 6 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. And he's working on his second straight week with a touchdown. He had a touchdown a week ago. And there's no tandem in history besides Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison that has caught more touchdowns than or quarterback to receiver connections than Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. And now he's starting to find himself in the Tampa Bay offense a little bit more. And now with some of these injuries that are taking place, Chris Godwin is going to have finger surgery coming up. And this next week, he has the Giants on Monday Night Football. I expect another big performance from Gronk. And Gronk had a great performance on National Tight End Day. So he was the second leading guy in fantasy points this week at his position with 18 points. And he's just going to keep lining it up this going forward. So we're going to be seeing more Gronk spikes, within the next few weeks, So if you guys decided to keep on the Rob Gronkowski, you guys got you a gem, because I know for me, I dropped him like an idiot. And now I'm kind of regretting it now because the tight end position is kind of soft in fantasy right now. So if you guys got Gronk, he had a great game on Sunday and he's going to have some good games in the future. So my player of the week was Gronk.
Nice. All right. Now, of course, we talked about the high points. Now we got to talk about the low points. So which players were you most disappointed in this week?
So I have two players. My first one's Chase Claypool. The last 2 weeks combined, he had a total of 60.7 PPR fantasy points. And like Abe said, Deontay Johnson kind of stole the show this week. Johnson came back after missing last week. 2 weeks ago, he was battling an ankle injury during the game, so he wasn't as productive. So Claypool came out, and boy, did he ever. Everyone thought that this was like a star in the making. I picked him up on waivers. I benched him last week, and then he had 2 good weeks in a row. So I was like, all right, I'll throw him in there. And then he catches 1 pass for -2 yards. So big disappointment for me this week. The other player that I had as the wide receiver position was Mike Evans. I feel like I'm always talking about Mike Evans on the show, just being a big disappointment. He had 2 catches for 37 yards, just over 5 fantasy points this week. And so I was looking at it, you'd think with Godwin, and Mike Evans is going to, not play as well. Well, there's actually a big difference in the 3 games that Godwin's been out this season. Mike Evans is averaging just over 21 fantasy points a game. And when Godwin's in, he's averaging 7.3 fantasy points a game. So there's a big difference. Terrian said, Godwin has that finger surgery, so he's already been ruled out for next week. So I guess start Mike Evans next week. Those are my 2 big disappointments of the week.
Got you. All right, Clayton.
So going to the Cowboys, you could really say there's a couple of guys on there. You could really look at the whole team and say we were disappointed in them. But CeeDee Lamb has really turned heads. But I feel like anytime you're talking about a rookie, you got to expect growing pains. So his poor performance, I'm not gonna focus on. I'm really disappointed in Zeke. This is a guy a lot of us spent a top 3 pick on this year. Expected to be on absolute stud, an absolute workhorse, and he only gets 12 carries because they're playing so far behind. And he only gets 45 yards from scrimmage. Last week was a terrible performance with 2 fumbles as well. It's not going to get any better either. I mean, in the coming weeks, they've got the Steelers and the Ravens on the schedule. So I don't see things getting any better for Zeke owners. It's not like they have a good quarterback like Dak under center to take the top off and take pressure away from him. So it could be tough sledding for Zeke owners like me.
Yeah, and it's funny that the fact that you brought up the rookie thing. I was thinking the same thing with Chase Claypool. You still got that time to grow. You still have those moments that you're going to make those errors, and especially against a tougher defense. The Titans were a tougher defense for them, so than they played before. But let's go ahead to Abe. Abe, who's your most disappointing player?
Yeah, for me, it's got to be DK Metcalf. He was my receiver 1. I had a ton of confidence in him before this week. I still have it, but just kind of having 2.3 points was obviously very disappointing. He came in with 20 points a game, 2 catches for 23 yards on 5 targets. So again, only converting 2 out of 5 targets. It's very disappointing, especially when the team was able to put up 34. Tyler Lockett obviously got 3 touchdowns, 53 fantasy points. So Metcalf was able to clear up all the work for for Lockett. He was able to get all the attention and kind of just have things easy for Tyler Lockett. I would say Chris Carson is day-to-day with an injury, so we could see the receivers a little more incorporated. Particularly Metcalf, more targets. 5 targets is usually not enough for a guy like Metcalf. He's very talented. Usually you want about 10 targets for him for a guy like that. So I think moving forward, you still have a lot of confidence in him, but this week was definitely very disappointing. Helped me lose, so that was unfortunate.
You go ahead, Terry.
I like that help me lose part. That's crazy. Yeah. So a guy that's been helping people lose all season, Devin Singletary is a guy that he's been really disappointing this fantasy season. And I was really disappointed on his performance on Sunday because we all know how I feel about the Jets, right? Every person should have 100 yards on the Jets. I'm sorry. I feel like Oprah when it comes to the Jets. You get 100 yards and you get 100 yards. But this week, Devin Singletary just didn't do much. And the simple fact that Zach Moss didn't play. So he was the feature running back. And to have 8 carries for 32 yards against the Jets, that's just not a good performance. And he hasn't been getting it done all year. And I think he's in that territory now where we kind of already seen enough from him to where I feel like the Bills are already looking at Le'Veon Bell. So I'm interested to see if they would try to add a running back, maybe trade deadline or something, or a veteran guy, because you kind of need a running back when it gets cold, in playoff time, a guy that can control the clock. And Devin Singletary hasn't showed that he can do that at all. That's why you drafted Zach Moss, but Zach Moss has been injured. So this was his week to really take the job, and he just didn't take the job. So he's my disappointment of the week. 8 carries, 32 yards against the Jets. So yeah, nope, not a fan of his this week.
Yeah, exactly. Some unexpected performances, but some clearly necessary performances for top players that you have on your fantasy. So we're going to move into our next segment, which is the waiver wire sleeper pickups. It's vital that you have some depth in your fantasy football roster. And as we've seen throughout the season, we already know some unprecedented injuries can completely change your picks, can completely change your teams. So you never really know what could happen. But if you want to keep winning, it is best that you stay prepared. So even if your star players are out this week, we still have you covered with this team again. So you guys, who are some sleepers you pick up? Isaac, let's go with you first.
So when I'm looking at sleepers or waiver wire picks, I'm always looking for running back, and it just seems like every week I'm not too confident in the running backs that are available. But Giovanni Bernard, he's a big name this week. He's available in 41% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. Early indications show that Joe Mixon will miss, a couple weeks with his foot injury. So you never know how long Bernard will be in there. Against the Browns last week, he caught all 5 of his targets for 59 yards and a touchdown. He also provided 37 rushing yards, which, isn't too amazing, but those catches, they add up in PPR. He had 20.6 PPR total points. So I would expect, around 10, 15 carries for Bernard and, around 5 catches a game. He does like to catch the ball a lot out of the backfield. We saw that when Mixon was in the lineup. So now getting the carries along with the catches, he could be a really good, fill-in running back for a couple of weeks while Mixon's out.
Got it. Clayton, who are you thinking?
Well, guys, my favorite subject is history. And the reason why I like history so much is because history is bound to repeat itself. If we go look back to last year, David Johnson was a very good running back for the Cardinals, all things considered. But this guy named Chase Edmonds looked just as good when given less touches and was producing just as much as David Johnson was. Okay? David Johnson gets hurt. Chase Edmonds steps up. All of a sudden, this guy named Kenyon Drake is looking better than Chase Edmonds. What's going on there? The second running back is looking better, right? Kenyon Drake goes down this year. Chase Edmonds is the backup. He's stepping up to the plate. So I am looking at Chase Edmonds hardcore. I think that's a guy that a lot of people are sleeping on. Maybe some people did pick him up to have as a flex play. If that happened, the reason I brought up the history part, the backup running back seems to get enough touches to warrant being rostered, right? Well, a guy from Arizona State, a rookie, Eno Benjamin, is a guy to keep an eye on. He's now the running back too. He was electric in college, had some good games. Like I said, that's his home state. That's his hometown. He may be putting forth a strong effort to try to get more playing time in this expanded role that he's going to see. So I'm going with Chase Edmonds, who had 130 yards through scrimmage and a touchdown in this game. Like I said, he's looked good. Kenyon Drake's going to be missing some time with an ankle injury. And if Chase Edmonds is already gone, I'd throw a dart at Eno Benjamin and see if he can't put some numbers on the board for us. If not, I mean, he's a bench stash anyway. What have you got to lose?
Right. All right. Who do you think people need to wake up about? Abe, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going with Joe Burrow. It seems like I've said this in the past, but he's still owned in only 57% of ESPN leagues. He had massive volume in Week 7, 35 of 47 on the stat line. That will continue against the Titans. Expect a high-scoring game. The Texans have been able to get some high-scoring games. Just 27-24 this week against a really tough Pittsburgh defense the week before against the Texans. So I expect more shootouts. Joe Burrow has really found a nice connection with T. Higgins, the rookie receiver. He's got the 19th ranked matchup against the Titans. And remember, as we always talk about, the number one thing in fantasy is volume. So whenever your defense is giving up a lot of points, you have to throw the ball a ton. He threw it 47 times this past week, so that should continue. So Joe Burrow, pick him up.
Yeah, definitely with Joe Burrow. And I've been saying this since the beginning of the season. We've talked about this on our Sunday kickoff shows with Coach Hugh Jackson. They get that on lineup. I think Joe Burrow will be looking a lot better going forward. All right, Terry Ann, who's your wake up pick?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. And they're both receivers, really good flex options. The first one is Nelson Aguilar. I personally sat in his press conference this past Sunday because that was a player I had to cover. And he said he's going to be a focal point in the Raiders offense, a lot more than he's been. And a lot of his plays, with him and Derek Carr have been unscripted. So now he's going to be a focal point on the offense. And the past 3 weeks, he's had a touchdown in each and every one of the games. This past Sunday against Tampa, he had 5 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown. A lot of people felt that as if Henry Ruggs was going to be the Raiders' go-to number 1 deep threat. And he will, but right now it's going to be Aguilar. Aguilar has been the most consistent guy for the Raiders, and that's been Derek Carr's favorite target, his security blanket over the middle and on deep plays. So Nelson Aguilar is going to be a guy going forward that you would want to look at. And the Raiders schedule going forward too. They have the Jets coming up, Atlanta Falcons coming up, some defenses they can exploit, Chargers. So, and the teams that I named right there, they give up a lot of points over the air. So Aguilar is a good pickup. And another guy I will look at too is Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley, he's owned in 58% of the leagues, and he's on pace quietly, 90 catches, 1,000 yards. John Brown recently went down, and Cole Beasley has been Josh Allen's favorite receiver. So far this year, he has 39 catches, 460 yards, and a couple of touchdowns. This past weekend, he had 11 catches, 121 yards. And the last couple weeks, he's had touchdowns in both games. So if you guys are looking for good flex options, look no further than Nelson Aguilar and Cole Beasley.
All right, you guys have heard what this wonderful team has to say in terms of where you need to wake up, who you should stop sleeping on. But now it's time for sits and starts. So who's touching the field? Who's back on the bench? What are you guys thinking? Isaac.
So Terrian talked about it earlier. If the player's playing the Jets, you want to put him in your lineup. He can go for 100 yards. And maybe even the kicker, Harrison Butker, could go for 100 yards this week. We never know. But the Jets have given up the second most fantasy points to kickers this season. So I got Butker as one of my must starts. Mahomes and company, they're going to have their way all week. They're going to put up a ton of points. And, the stars kind of scare me in this game. So maybe the Chiefs are up by too much, and the Travis Kelce's and Tyreek Hills don't get as involved, and maybe a Brandon Pringle will score, Demarcus Robinson, or maybe even Le'Veon Bell. But as long as the team is scoring, Butker is going to score for your team. My other guy that I have starting this week is Todd Gurley. The last time the Falcons played the Panthers, I recommended Gurley to start on the show, and he came through. He made me look good. He produced 25 PPR fantasy points. So I'm going to say it again. Start Gurley against the Panthers this week. Carolina struggles against the run. They've given up the 3rd most fantasy points to the running back position this year. And Gurley comes into the game with a little bit of momentum. He's coming off of a 20-plus fantasy point outing last week against the Lions. And so for my sit, last week I made a bold prediction. I picked Robert Woods against the Bears, and he only put up 5.5 PPR points. So I'm going to go bold again. And Devontae Parker, I want to sit him this week against the Rams. The game, it's supposed to rain. It's Tua Tagovailoa's debut with the team. And Parker's coming off his worst outing of the season with just 3 catches and 35 yards. And he's also dealing with the right ankle injury that's kind of been lingering the past couple weeks. And then he's going to have a cornerback named Jalen Ramsey lined up across from him. So a bad combination of rain, rookie quarterback debut, ankle injury, and Jalen Ramsey. I'm not going to start Devontae Parker this week.
Got it. Clayton.
A guy that's really been frustrating based on the hype that surrounded him was Jonathan Taylor. He goes into a matchup with the Lions this week where they just let Todd Gurley, I should say, run for 2 touchdowns on him. And the last one may have been accidental, whatever you want to say about it. But he still had 60 yards above the yards coverage and 2 touchdowns. Had a very nice game against them. Jonathan Taylor has been averaging around 13 yards or 13 carries per game. He's not had, since he's been the starter, below 55 yards from scrimmage. I think that's exciting. He's also thrown in 3 touchdowns out of his last 5 games. This is a guy that I'd be excited about in this choice matchup. Phillip Rivers obviously hasn't been playing as well as he should be, so I expect the Colts coming out of the bye week to get back to running the football. Somebody that I'm going to sit is actually, it may come as a shocker because he's on a heater, you could say, but Keenan Allen historically does not play that well against the Broncos. He averages 47 yards per game against the Broncos over his career. The bigger threat, I would say, is the Denver team is getting beat on the deep ball right now. I would look for Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton, or even Hunter Henry, because the Denver historically, the past 5 years since they won the Super Bowl, cannot cover a tight end. If somebody had a gun to their head and told them to do it, they couldn't do it. They would just die. So I would look for any of those guys over Keenan Allen, because for whatever reason, Denver seems to have this guy's number. I mean, you have to start him. Obviously, you feel comfortable starting a stud like that. If I have the flexibility to bench him, I would bench Keenan Allen.
Abe.
Yeah, I'm starting Brandon Ayuk this week. He had 9 points in week 7 against the New England Patriots. We keep seeing Kyle Shanahan. He keeps providing a very good play design for the 49ers. He's able to overcome injuries every single week. He's able to give the offense new opportunities. Deebo Samuel can be out for this game, so there's going to be more opportunity for Ayuk to do more things. He's facing a very vulnerable Seahawks defense, and coming off a 33-point week for the 49ers, I think the offense overall as a whole is not only trying to get different guys plugged in, but they're on a pretty good streak, and you should expect a pretty good game against the Seahawks. I expect it to be a shootout.
Tyrion.
Yeah, so this is the portion of the show where I pick on the Jets. We already know that. But Isaac kind of already alluded to the kicker. But how many chances in life, right, do you get to face your former employer and you just get to throw stuff up in their face that I'm better than you and I'm so glad that I left you? Well, Le'Veon Bell gets that option this week against the Jets. And you just feel like last week the game script really wasn't a Le'Veon Bell game because it means it's snow and he's in a new place. But you know what the scary part about it is? In his 6 carries for 36 yards, he averaged 6.5 yards per carry. And you play the Jets this weekend, so you can average a lot more, and it's your former team. You don't like Adam Gase. With the holidays coming up, I don't think that the Bells and the Gase family are going to have Thanksgiving dinner together. They hate each other. So I feel like a couple of those runs are really there's going to be explosive runs, and a couple of them he's going to look at Adam Gase and give him that what now look. So and I also think that Patrick Mahomes is going to score 1 million points. I don't know if that's possible, but Le'Veon Bell, to me, I expect for him to have a really big game just because he's going against his former team, and he doesn't like Adam Gase. My bench of the week is any Ravens running back that's out there, right? The reason why I'm benching the Ravens this week is they haven't had a really. We know that the Ravens love running the football, but consistently we don't know who their guy is, right? A lot of us, we talked about Mark Ingram earlier on in the year, and Mark Ingram has struggled. Now he's injured. J.K. Dobbins hasn't really found himself in the offense. And now you have Gus Edwards. But the worst part about that is you're playing against a Steelers defense that's actually really good, really physical. They held, the best running back in the league, arguably Derrick Henry, in check this past weekend. And so what are they going to do against 3 different guys? So I don't know which one to start, and I wouldn't tell you who to start because with the Ravens game script, it's different every single week. It's like Forrest Gump chocolates. You just don't know what you're going to get with them. So that's why I'm benching them. I'm benching every single one of them. And it's not a good game, and it's not a good game for them, right? So I'm benching Ravens, right? So my start of the week is, like I said, Le'Veon Bell, and my bench of the week is the whole entire Ravens running back crew.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, the entire Ravens running back group, first of all, the Steelers and how they stopped Derrick Henry at the line, was fantastic. And when Derrick Henry broke that defense, he was explosive. You're not going to get that same sort of explosiveness from the Ravens running back team this week. It's not happening. So, yeah. But you guys, thank you for all of your feedback. And that is it for this Week in Fantasy. Make sure you guys message us, though, on Instagram at East West Football and DM us on Twitter at East West Sports 1. Let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your input. Are there some picks that you guys are not so sure about, some things that you think we need to wake up on ourselves? So for all updates, though, make sure you guys are checking out our website, eastwestfootballnetwork.com, and subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, all of that. All of that, we got you covered for sure. But we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, and you guys have a great night. Bye, guys.
Bye.